Welcome to Merge Plus Diversity and Inclusion Podcast.
Hello, Rosario. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're super pleased to have you as our pioneer guest at Merge Plus Inc. Merge Plus Inc. is dedicated to establishing a dynamic platform that amplifies impactful narratives and showcases the efforts of leaders like you who are doing exceptional work to foster diversity and inclusion. We recognize the indispensable role that diversity and inclusion plays in achieving sustainable development. And so that's why Merge Plus Inc. is championing these values as they've been proven to be catalysts for driving innovation, enriching organizational cultures, methodologies, and frameworks, as well as profitability. We believe that through our storytelling initiatives and spotlighting endeavors, we will redefine the notion of impact. We will catalyze progress towards the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as empower individuals and businesses to reimagine their sustainability efforts, translate their commitments into tangible actions. So we're super glad we see the work that you're doing. So thank you for joining us and for agreeing to share your story with the world and with the industry that we all work in. As it starts, right, we would start with this question. We would like to know more about you, how you got here, right? Tell us a little bit about yourself and the story.
I don't know if I can pack up everything about myself in 3 minutes, but let me try. But first off, thank you, Merge Plus Inc. For coordinating this initiative to the extent that you're fostering and, let's say, advancing advocacy for diversity and inclusion. It's very commendable. So I would like to take that first moment to congratulate you both on this initiative and hope that, from here on is very successful for championing the diversity and inclusion cause. That being said, about me, I've been in the industry coming to 20 years now. Started out very green in the energy industry in 2006. Prior to that, I did a brief stint in banking, about 2.5 to 3 years. 1 year as well in manufacturing, specifically British American tobacco, before moving on to Schlumberger, right now called SLB. In SLB, I started out very green, a very greenhorn trainee, but quickly built my competencies around the technical perspective, going offshore of Deepwater Nigeria, drilling for Shell at the time at the Bongas assets. I know, if I recall correctly, I was able to drill about 18 wells on that asset at that time. And it was a very promising time for the industry because the industry was, booming at the time, complement of the business environment, which was enabling development in the industry at the time. And so this quickly allowed me to hone my technical skills in the deepwater environment, eventually very quickly leading projects, drilling campaigns on the deepwater environment, and eventually building other relational currencies to be able to navigate, let's say, the offshore workspace. Afterwards, I moved into the office when I got married and started having babies, and I focused on supporting the offshore population from town through technical expertise in terms of real-time support for ongoing problems on the rig sites worldwide, in Nigeria or nationwide. I believe that one of the skills I built from that particular experience of managing and supporting in real time the field population was problem solving, to the extent that there were always problems, that needed to be addressed. It also helped me hone in on my critical thinking or critical reasoning, as well as being able to communicate effectively to address these problems in real. So these were some of the skills that I built in that journey after my technical skills, working offshore of Nigeria. And then I got the opportunity to move to a sales role. In this commercial role, of course, I quickly built and strengthened my relational skills because it was key to managing customer engagement. I also continued to evolve some of my skill sets or leverage some of my skill sets like the communications, like problem solving, because obviously there are always problems to address for the customers. And where there are challenges lie also the opportunities, being able to recognize those opportunities and hopefully translating those opportunities into business capital or business, what do you call them? Let's say business profits, is also, very important. So I quickly built my, let's say, commercial skills around commercial acumen. And I quickly realized that, with the commercial environment, you also needed to understand somewhat the institutional environment, because you could not isolate the commercial environment from the institutional environment. Essentially, I also built institutional skills around engaging with regulatory stakeholders to understand outcomes and let's say, evaluation of how, business opportunities are first and foremost applied, as well as eventually getting to the point where they become a pipeline of, let's say, projects, for the industry. And there are so many variables that go into these sort of discussions, from fiscal terms to regulatory framework and to the business opportunity itself. So this, for me, was important to establish an understanding and how this translates into business opportunities. So over the years, I eventually moved into this role in Tenaris as the commercial manager, again strengthening my commercial acumen and all the opportunities I just talked the skills I just talked about in the institutional space, leading on to where I am today as the managing director of Tenaris in Nigeria, where I lead the business from an institutional, industrial and commercial perspective. So it's a threefold portfolio in one. It looks extensive, but I have to kind of triangulate to make sure that first and foremost, the strategy of the business from a corporate perspective is aligned, or the strategy of Nigeria or Tenaris in Nigeria is aligned to the strategy of the business from the corporate perspective. And so far, so good. I've been in this role for 2 years. I'm married with to a very wonderful man who supports, my career, has supported my career journey so far, and I have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. I think I can stop here. I don't know how much I said. This would be a good place to stop for the next question.
Incredible.
Absolutely.
Incredible journey. You're such an inspiration to a lot of women who are also looking to climb up in the career space.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you have many questions to ask.
Yeah, I just wanted to chip in.
Easy on me.
Because I just wanted to chip in as well that, yes, one of the people a lot of the young people look up to, myself personally. So I'm really inspired hearing all of this from you, knowing that whatever opportunity we find ourselves in, it's always good to build up that skill and, of course, utilize those skills in, things subsequently. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, the first question really is, now that, you are the managing director and you personally, could you please help us explain how you demonstrate your commitment to diversity and inclusion, and how do you hold yourself and others accountable for progress in this area?
Okay, it's an interesting question. Thank you, Jo, for asking. First and foremost, everyone who knows me, one of the things they would say is Rosario has a can-do mindset. And I believe I'm a doer. That's what I like to, pride myself as, and energized by activities. And so what that means is that, I first and foremost set the pace. As a pace setter, I set the pace. I lead by example. I think it's key to, demonstrate that, for instance, in my opinion, I believe that representation matters. And for me, in this role as, for instance, the first managing director of Tenaris in Nigeria, it then becomes that I represent my gender to the best of my abilities, so that it does not only build confidence in the organization to have more of my gender participate at leadership level, but it also showcases why representation matters even at all levels of the organization. So first and foremost, I lead by example. The second one I would like to highlight here is the fact that personally, I like to say that I foster a very integrative or a balance between work and life. I think right now we cannot separate life from work. And so I like to call it work-life integration. So I foster that kind of inclusive environment that allows us, we're always in the office for most parts of Monday to Friday, for a minimum of 8 hours based off of our contracts. So for me, it's important that when employees come to work, they are coming to work and bringing their best selves to work. And the only way they can bring their best selves to work is when the environment is, it's amiable in such a way that, they appreciate the work, they put in the work that they are getting done, but they also see that it's not a toxic environment and they can operate and be themselves, their best or authentic selves, for whatever roles or activities or tasks that they are deliberated to or delegated to action. So that's the first thing I would say around promoting an inclusive environment and promoting work-life integration. The second thing as well for me is that, especially for the female population, and given that I've gone through that journey of motherhood myself, I understand how complex it can get, in those years when you're raising children. So it becomes important for me not just to support my, let's say, the employees that work with me, but it also becomes very important for me to ensure that, they see that they have access to whatever they want or whatever they require to be able to raise a family, and thankfully I work for an organization that also supports this direction. As an example, I would give is we all know the maternity leave policy, for instance, in Nigeria is 3 or 4 months right now, but we have an additional policy, a maternity policy, that allows not just, so we have a maternity and a paternity policy in the first place. But the interesting thing about the maternity policy is that it allows the employee to be able to have 2 days working from the office and 3 days working from home after resumption of maternity leave. So this duration is about 1 year, which gives you the time to be able to, bond with your baby and, kind of gradually, take on the role of both mother and employee. So this is one initiative that I think I am personally very appreciative of. And here in the region, I ensure that, employees utilize this. One of my commercial employees just came back fully to work after 1 year of being away on maternity leave. And you can see she's fully vested in, her commercial responsibilities right now, because she knows that she has the flexibility, to be able to balance the home front as well as the work front. I think the third point that I would like to highlight here is that a lot of times for us as women and for generally as human beings, we probably get into a job and we say, oh yeah, I'm here to do this job and I just focus on my job, right? But at some point when you start questioning the rationale of why you're even in existence in the first place, if you have a growth mindset and you're a forward-thinking person, you would understand that whatever you do has to be bigger than you. It has to be, it has to have impact. And so for me, I got to that point in my life, when I was asking a lot of questions, and I decided to take on, okay, what more can I do to impact, for instance, my own gender, as I like to put it. And one of the things that I also do is that I push very strong advocacy in the industry at all levels. Of course, leveraging the skills I've already now built institutionally, I'm able to leverage in the institutions. I'm able to leverage customers, because obviously I have let's say customer relationship skill set, and I'm able to drive through many collaborative channels advocacy around diversity and inclusion. And I believe that as a female leader, this should be your posture, going forward. Of course, there are many more things that we can do differently, but I'll just streamline these three for the purpose of our conversation.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think, honestly, I think those that, especially the 1 year maternity leave, I'm not sure I've seen anywhere else in Nigeria. I might be wrong, but man,
so just to clarify, the maternity leave in Nigeria is 4 months or 3 months, one of them.
Yeah.
But that what we do is that we have an additional policy that allows the new mother, to be flexible at work for a duration of 1 year until the baby's first birthday. So you get to only come into the office 2 days every week, which also allows you 3 days a week flexibility to work from home and bond with your baby, as well as attend to the needs of your baby.
Just verify. And that is, it's incredible. And I'm glad that you understand value that this kind of balance brings to the bottom line of the company. So that's diversity and inclusion right there. That's a good example of what we're trying to champion. And I'm glad that you talked about balance, because it brings me to the next question around balanced leadership. So from your perspective, what does balanced leadership mean to you, especially as a female CEO or managing director, and how do you believe it's crucial for an organization's success?
I always like to clarify, MD, not CEO. But for the purpose of this conversation, if I got you right, balanced leadership, what it means to me, and especially in my role, why is it crucial for the success of an organization?
Yes.
As I understand it, balanced leadership is really, finding an equilibrium between leading yourself and leading others, right? And I like to say that, you cannot lead others when you have not mastered the act of leading yourself. So I would say the first thing that is critical in my own role as a managing director is the fact that I have to have, at some point, continue to evolve my self-awareness, because when you know yourself, when you know your strengths, when you know your limitations, then you can continue to leverage your strengths as best as you can, and hopefully develop your areas of improvement. Let me put it, for lack of a better word. So for me, I believe that that's the first thing. That self-awareness is required as a leader to bring about that balanced leadership we've just talked about. The other thing as well that I would like to highlight in this conversation is that as a leader as well, there are different leadership styles. But for me, it's important that my leadership style, is brought to bear in my engagement with my team, to the extent of leading them. And as I said earlier, my leadership style is a bit of a pace setter, can do, bringing it in, and most importantly, empathetic leader. I like to put myself in the shoes of others, where that probably, meets would be servant, transformational type of leadership. And so with that sort of leadership, with that sort of approach, the first thing I've said, as I said earlier, is that I lead by example. So I show that I can do it. Then, the rest of the team, when they see that I can do it, also strive to do their own best as well in their, individual roles that eventually add to us as a collective. The second thing that, comes to my mind is the fact that in my own role, and, while I'm trying to bring about that balance in leadership, one of the things I also encourage is empowerment. Empowerment to the extent that I cannot be everywhere. I told you in this portfolio as managing director, I wear a hat industrially, which means I'm responsible for the industrial facilities that Tenaris has in Nigeria. I'm also responsible commercially, which means that I have to go into all the commercial negotiations that bring about business opportunities for Tenaris, and which means that I am committed institutionally to understand how policies are evolving, regulation is evolving, so that we can continue to do business in a responsible manner for the Tenaris brand. So with that in view, I also believe that empowering your teams to be able to take decisions, to be able to, do the work is also crucial. So one of the instances I probably would give is, for me, the way I think about everything is a project, to the extent that if I see that there is a need, industrially speaking, we just got a contract right now, and there will be need to have some kind of intervention in the industrial facility, right? And I see that we need to continue to empower, members of the team. So I've identified a few candidates who I think can use this opportunity of this contract and this project to build on their skill sets, and I've made them the project managers for that intervention that is required. And that way, I'm empowering them, to make decisions as it relates to the project. But obviously, we work in a very with the corporate structure we have. We still need all the corporate alignment to make sure that we are authorized in the direction that we go. But it's also important for me that such teammates are building their skills and hopefully being able to build skills that can translate to business value in the future, right? So this is one of the reasons why it is critical to empower your employees. The other thing I also do is I believe that there's something that it's a Nigerian adage or an African adage. So if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go, with others. And so for me, what that means is that even in business, I always encourage collaboration. So what does that mean? Collaboration is the new cool, so everyone tends to use that word collaboration. But for me, the way I see it is, if Uju, you're one of my teammates, and you come to me and you say, "Oh, I have this bottleneck in the HR process and blah 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 blah," what I'm just going to do is that I'm going to put you in the call with the HR business partner, for instance. There's no need to have separate conversations. Let's try to understand what the bottleneck is, and let's try to hopefully from this call address those bottlenecks with concrete actions that can resolve the issues. I believe that's key, not just to encourage teams to work together in a collaborative way, but eventually it's crucial for business performance, because when you see that on your own, the individual goal adds on to the collective sum that gives you the business results that is the final output that the business wants to see. So it's important that every stakeholder is gainfully engaged to the extent that they are collaborating actively to bring about that business result. So collaboration, empowerment, I would think I spoke about work-life integration previously, so I'm not going to highlight that. But the other thing as well is, and very key point is adaptability. I believe that all of us on this call can agree that the last few years have been about resilience and adaptability in all business environments, leading from COVID to the Russian-Ukraine war that escalated issues around the energy industry, for instance. And at the end of the day, my own thoughts towards that is that as a leader, to bring about balance in leadership, it's important that leaders continue to demonstrate resilience and adaptability, and hopefully feed that into the business in a way that the business continues to be sustainable in not just the global environment, but even in the niche environment like Nigeria where we operate. So this would be my response to that question. I don't know if that answers your inquiry.
Yeah, it sure does. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences and actions that you do personally, and some of the ones you do in the company where you work. Now, I just wanted to move to something slightly different, not really different, but to another topic where we're asking you for recommendations to other female leaders on how best to foster mentorship and sponsorship opportunities for women in this case, especially in their organizations and elsewhere. What are those recommendations so that those takeaways that the other female leaders can take from this conversation?
Okay. So the first thing I would always say is, I said it earlier around lead by example. It's important that female leaders, lead by example, because it doesn't only demonstrate competency, right? It also demonstrates representation. So, for you to be able to champion diversity and inclusion causes and promote mentorship and sponsorships, for instance, in every organization, you yourself have to demonstrate that incredible ability of competence and skill. So that's the first thing. And hopefully, when you're representing our gender in a positive way, then it begins to trickle down, to the organizations, the respective organizations as well. So lead by example is one way. The other thing that female leaders can do to promote sponsorship, mentorship is advocacy in their organizations, advocacy in their areas and circles of influences, advocacy in the industry where they operate. This is key because it's not just doing your work. It's about speaking up for other people as well. Because even if, yes, I'm already in my role as the MD, but I believe that what will give me greater satisfaction from my job is to continue to see others evolve and, be their best selves, taking on even more higher positions within the organization and even outside the organization, and being successful at it. So this would give me the most satisfaction from what I do on a daily basis. And so when you look at advocacy, we are undermine advocacy, but I believe that championing the cause of speaking up, especially in leadership positions, for the need for sponsorship, mentorship, is one way that female leaders can promote course on improving diversity. Improving mentorship and sponsorship within the organization. The other way as well would be, you're a woman in that position and you understand the actual needs of women, to the extent of maybe motherhood, of being a woman in the first place, and all the variables that come with being a woman. And so if you make yourself accessible, it becomes one step easier for other people to reach you and seek mentorship and guidance from you, in that case. So I believe that you can also give, or personally, I do this as well. I not only mentor within my organization, I also reach out in the industry for mentees who need support and guidance in different aspects and different, let's say, phases of their careers, to mentor them specifically. The other thing that we can do, and I like to promote this one, is creating and fostering networks. Women don't do very well with networks, right? Because they just feel like, sometimes if, for instance, the female network, they say, women, that comment around saying, women are a certain way, is already a stereotype that in the diversity and inclusion, in the diversity and inclusion discussion should be eliminated, because it's a bias, right? When you have a bias that women act and do a certain way, so I don't want to go join a network or I don't want to join this organization because women are involved, then you are not even encouraging diversity and inclusion. So I would say foster, promote, push, create networking opportunities. As an instance, today, you have access to everything on your phone. On this phone, you have WhatsApp, you have so many platforms that you can leverage. I have on WhatsApp platform, I have all the Tenaris Nigeria women, and I make myself accessible to them on that group in such a way that we discuss anything and everything, from work to personal struggles, to development discussions around, maybe I see a topic of interest, I share in the group, and I'm like, oh, this benefited me in this way. I believe this can benefit you as well. So this is for starters. The second thing I have also done personally is that I have registered all the women in Tenaris Nigeria under the Women in Energy Network in Nigeria. So what that means, of course, sponsored by the company. So what that means is that, eventually I'm expanding the network beyond Tenaris Nigeria to the industry so that they can begin to, co-relate with other industry stakeholders, learn from them, and hopefully be inspired by other like-minded people and female as well, their journeys and how they have reached the pinnacle or the heights of their careers. So these are some of the things that I like to push for from a leadership perspective, because I believe that networks are key, and women are generally averse to network. They typically look at them as problem areas. And my comment again, I think I must say, even though I say I have a hard stop, is that you should not only network with your same gender, because we also need male allies, we need sponsorships, we need allies. And in today's context of the energy industry we operate, we still agree that men predominantly, it's a male-dominated environment, and as such, we need them to be able to champion these diversity and inclusion causes, not just as a HR topic, but as a business imperative, to ensure that you are not only making the business sustainable, but you're also building a pool of talents that can help you sustain that business for the now and the future.
Can I please sign up as a mentee?
Anyways, you're welcome.
I think you had one more question around how navigating a diversity-related issue.
Exactly. In fact, that was the one I really wanted to hear.
Okay.
I mean,
What's the question? I didn't get that.
You worked in the field, you worked as a commercial person, salesperson in SLB, and then now in Tenaris as well. So you have a vast number of years of experience, and I know that you've seen so much. So our question is, if you can, share like a personal situation where you had to navigate a diversity-related issue. It can be anything at all, or conflict. Please share and let us know how you navigated it and what were the outcomes. Because a lot of us will probably learn from some of these things on how to navigate our own career as well. Thank you.
Okay, let me think. Very quickly, I'll give a first example. As a woman, and I'm not ignorant of the fact that obviously attractive female, in the industry, there's always going to be that stereotype of, oh, they see you, okay, what's in it for me? And so I've had instances where I'm having discussions, even commercially speaking, with customers, and maybe a male contemporary or a male customer or someone is thinking something else. So for this particular example, we're discussing a possibility of a $40 million business and opportunity. And then at some point I was like, oh, okay, we're happy to take you for lunch, and he was not available, but we evolved the conversation to where I was saying, okay, whenever you're open, we're happy to, engage with you in this manner. And so afterwards, I recall that the conversation was a chat, evolved to the point where he was saying, oh, I miss you here, and, going very personal and more intimate. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure I got the memo. So I immediately addressed it by first apologizing to say, if my body language, my smile, or whatever interactions I've had with you has made any suggestion or any suggestive implications, I do apologize. However, I do not play like this. So I set the record straight, just drew the line immediately. But I know that was somewhat of a conflict again, given the fact that I'm female, because I don't think that would happen in the case of if I was asking a male contemporary for lunch, and stuff like that. So I believe that that's one example that, is good. And I like to use that example because as women, we need to be able to draw a line. And drawing a line is really about setting the boundaries, ensuring in an ethical way, in a responsible way, that you're doing business in a way that, does not compromise your own person. And as such, it's okay to say no. It's okay to speak up when, the line is crossed. And my mother used to tell me when I was little, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for just about anything. And so you have to stand for something. You have to be someone of, a reputation, so that when you say your no is no. And when you say your yes is yes. So I believe that that's something that women can learn from, because sometimes in a male-dominated environment, women think that they need to give of themselves in certain ways to be able to continue to grow the hierarchy. The second one I would give as an example is a situation where I've been, and I will not mention the organization just to manage the discussions. But a situation where I've been managing a team, I appraised a team member, and my boss thought differently, about that team member, saying, "Oh, go downgrade this person." I'm like, why? Eventually, I went home, I thought about it, and I just thought this team member was female and had been pregnant during the course of the year. So I just thought that was not a reasonable ask, because I had assessed the team member based off of her performance, and she was not an exceed expectation, but at the minimum she had met all the requirements that we asked of her in terms of our expectations. And so I came back and I said, "No, boss, I don't think I can go through with what you're asking me to do." And eventually he threatened me. I would not want to use the exact exchange on this call, but I recall that in my appraisal that year, he said to me, "I manage like a mother hen. I tend to be very protective of my subordinates and those my direct reports, and that it's not a good management style." I believe that the year that I worked with him was one of the lowest points in my career, because then I struggled with self-esteem issues, because I began to say, "Oh, look, is there something I'm doing in my leadership that is wrong?" I had evolved my leadership journey up to that point, and I'd pretty much been confident that I was building the right skill set. But at that point, I began to question myself. But, it took obviously intervention of people like my husband, who is one of my sounding boards, as well as different programs and mentorship, speaking to other stakeholders, both male and female allies, who eventually helped me to evolve my thinking process around this situation. I think it also helps that eventually I had a change of boss, and the new boss who came was more, saw me and saw my potential and continued to empower me. And eventually today, I realized that comment "mother hen" is such a stereotype that should be avoided in the workplace by all standards, right? Yeah. But guess what? I realized that what he was calling mother hen was the fact that I'm an empathetic leader. I like to put myself in the shoes of others. Yeah. And I don't know why I would have developed self-esteem for that situation. So now I'm confident in my leadership. I go ahead and I lead from an empathetic perspective, setting the pace, making sure I'm putting in the work and showing servant leadership in the sense of, the word. And I have no apologies to anybody in the way that I lead, even if you want to call it mother hen in quotes, but that's a stereotype that eventually, happened to me, and how I was able to come back from it in general sense. Yeah, I don't know if this helps, Mujo, for these examples. And I believe we have our hard stop now.
Excellent session. You want to round up for us?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Rosario. In fact, just these 30 minutes, I've learned so much. Myself, I'm aspiring as well all the time. So I'm always happy to hear and listen to people that done it, how they did it, and hopefully, try to emulate some of the nice things I've taken away from this conversation. So thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for making our time for us. And we hope that, like Priscilla said initially, in the future, if we call on you again, because we plan to have all manner of different things, different events, we hope that you'll be able to join us. So thank you. and enjoy the rest of the
Enjoy
day.
the rest of the day.
Okay, yes. To close, I'll say thank you as well for having me, and hopefully good luck with this journey you guys have both taken. It's laudable, it's commendable. Please keep it up. Bye.
Thank you. Bye now. Bye.